So let us start the class. So in the last class we have seen the inheritance, and in today's class we will see abstraction.
Madam, please increase your volume.
Yeah, now tell me.
Yeah, now it is fine. Little more will be good.
Okay, so now you all can hear me, right?
Yes, madam.
Okay, fine. So in the last class we have seen the inheritance, and in today's class we will see the next principle of hoops, that is nothing but abstraction. So let us see. Okay, so see, I have one requirement. To satisfy the requirement, I have written this program. So I have started an institution and I have launched three courses in that institution: Java, Python, and .NET. So for Java students, I have written this logic. For Python students, I have defined this logic where I will display the Python fee. And for the .NET students, I have defined this logic. So I have three students currently with me. To maintain the data of first student, I will take S1 object. To maintain the data of the second student, I will take the S2 object. To maintain the data of the third student, I am taking the S3 object. So this is okay. See, actually here the point is student 1, the first student wants to learn only Java. So I am calling Java fee with that object. Second student wants to learn only Python. So S2.Python fee. For here with his object I am calling the Python fee. S3 wants to learn only .NET. So S3.NET fee. So I am calling the .NET fee function for that particular with that particular object. So this is the requirement and this is the code I have written. See, this design is not at all good. This is a faulty design. Can anybody tell why? What is the problem here? Some logic I have written, okay, core Java equal to this much, advanced Java equal to this much. Some logic I have written.
Multiple objects creation.
Yes, I want to put all the information of the first student in S1 object, so I have taken S1 object. Similarly, for second student, separate object I should take. See, here the problem is, see, do you remember, if I create object for the class, all the variables and methods of the class will be loaded into that object. If I create an object for the class, all the variables, methods, whatever available, those will be loaded into the object. So in S1 object, all the three methods, Java fee, Python fee, .NET fee, all the methods got loaded. In S2 object also, all the methods got loaded. In S3 object also, all the methods got loaded. See, S1 wants to learn only Python, only Java, right? So he wants only Java fee, but we are loading the the Python fee and .NET fee. This is not required. Similarly, S2 want to learn only Python. So S2.Python fee, that's why I'm calling that only. But by default, Java fee, .NET fee will also be loaded. Now that is also not required. In S3 object, just .NET fee is required. Java fee, Python fee is not required because S3 is representing a student who wants to learn only .NET. So he required only .NET fee. Here the problem you can see is memory inefficiency. The memory is used inefficiently. Every object is going to get all the methods, which is not at all good. Every object is getting all the methods. S1 want only Java fee logic, S2 object require only Python fee logic, S3 object is requiring only the .NET fee. But this is not good. Everything is loaded into each and every object. That is not at all good. That is not at all required also. So in order to overcome the memory inefficiency problem, we will use the concept of abstraction. See, I'm talking louder only. You have to increase your system settings, right? See, if I will increase my sound, like your voice will be increased for me. So if there is any problem in reaching my voice, you have to check your system settings. Okay. So please try. Still, if you face any problem, log out and relog in, because every day how I'm speaking, today also I'm speaking. Yeah, that's what. So this is what, this is memory. This is not at all good. It's like wastage of memory, and everything is loaded into every object, which is not at all good. Okay, fine. So in order to overcome this memory inefficiency problem, or in order to overcome such type of problem, we will use the concept of abstraction. We will use the concept of abstraction. See, here what I am doing, I am taking the class student. In that fee function I have taken. In the student class I have taken the fee function, that is okay. See, I have represented the method, but I didn't write the body for that method. I have represented the method, but that means I told that every class, every student should have fee. Without fee, there is no class, let us say. So I told that fee function should be there. Just represented that fee function should be there for every student. Fee should be there for every student, but I didn't write the body. I just kept pass. Do you remember what is pass? Can anybody answer? I told you what is pass in the last classes. Now, what is that?
Yes,
Let,
it is like we can write code later also.
Correct. Okay. So just I have represented that fee function should be there, and I'm not going to write the body, any body, because if I write the bodies, all the bodies are going to all the objects. That is the problem. Okay. See, this is under which concept? Can you tell me? Class B bracket A. What is this concept?
Child class.
Child parent means which concept?
Hierarchy.
Inheritance.
Inheritance, na? Right.
Inheritance.
Yes. So Java student is becoming the child of the student class. So Java student becomes the child of student. That means fee function from student will also be available in the Java student class. So now here I am writing the body for the incomplete method. See, the incomplete method fee went to the Java student class. So here I am writing the body for the Java fee function. Then what I am doing now, Python student is also becoming the child of the student class. So the fee function from student will also be going to the Python student class. So here I will write the fee for the Python course. And here .NET student is also extending the student class. That means fee function from student will also go to the .NET student class. So here I will be writing the logic for the .NET fee. That means C# equal to this much, ASP equal to this much, like that. So now what I'm doing, now see, I'm asking you a question. If I create object, say J, let us say, sorry, just let me pick up the pencil. Okay, so if I create an object J for the Java student class, my question is, into this J object, all the fee functions will be loaded, or only Java fee function will be loaded? What do you say?
all
Java free only.
Java female. See, for which class you will create object, that class methods will only be loaded into the object. Na? If I create object for the Java student class, like J, into J, only that Java fee logic will be loaded. Now please tell me, if I create an object P for the Python student class, into P, all the fee functions will be loaded, or only the Python fee logic will be loaded into P?
Python fee.
Only Python fee logic. Okay, if I create a D object for the .NET student class, only .NET class fee function will be loaded, or all the fee functions will be loaded?
Only the dot.
Only .NET fee will be loaded. So the problem is solved. So we are not making the design hectic. We are simply making the objects, see, the required methods we are loading into required objects only through our design. through this design, we are making the respective methods to be loaded into respective objects. Instead of loading everything unnecessarily in each and every object, we are managing like this. So this is called as abstraction. I will tell you, see, the term abstraction represents incompleteness. Incompleteness. See, why incompleteness is there? You didn't write the body, na? That's why we can say that it is incompleteness. So what is the definition of abstraction means? Representing essential features by hiding background details. Essential feature means what? The method declaration, like the specific, like you're specifying that fee should be there, na? So representing the essential feature. Essential feature means what? The method name. By hiding the background details. Background details means what? Body of the method. Till child class, you haven't written any body, right? So representing essential feature and by hiding the background details is called as what? Abstraction. Okay. See, the term abstraction represents incompleteness. Representing the method name by hiding the body. That means representing essential features by hiding the background details is called as abstraction. So what is an abstract method? See, method without body. Method without body is called as an abstract method. See, this method is not having body, na? So this is called as an abstract method. So what is a normal method? Method with body. Normally methods will be having bodies, na? Logics, na? So method with body is called as concrete method, normal method, non-abstract method. In any way we can call. Method without body is called as abstract method, and method with body is called as normal, non-abstract or concrete method. So here is an important point. I don't understand when to take an abstract method or when to make a method as abstract or when to make a method as normal. See, how I have to decide? Let us understand. I will ask the question to you only. So let us say, see, Java student is there, .NET student is there, and .NET student is there, and Python student is there. See, everybody should pay. Java student, .NET student, Python student, everybody should pay 100 rupees of registration fee. Okay, so now my question is, def fee. I have to write here only like a print 100 rupees is the registration fee to be paid by everybody. That means I have to make it as a normal method in the parent, or I have to declare that and I have to write the body in the child class. That means I have to make this as abstract. So my question is, every student, Java student, .NET student, Python student, every student should pay 100 rupees of registration fee. I am telling that in the parent class student, shall I make the fee as normal or abstract? That is what my question. What do you say?
Normal.
Normal. So why it is normal? Why you have decided? Can you please tell me?
Because that
Because the fee is everybody has to pay the fee.
Oh, okay. Everybody has to pay the same fee. If I write that fee directly in the parent, automatically it will go to all the 3 child classes. So the body is common. That's why you are taking like that. Okay. So now you are telling method fee should be normal in the parent. That is what your answer. Perfect. Now Java student should pay 100 rupees. .NET student should pay 200 rupees. Python student should pay 300 rupees. Now please tell me, fee function should be abstract or normal in the parent?
Abstract.
Perfect. See, the point is, if the body is common for all the objects, then directly write that only for once in the parent and it will go to all the child classes. But if the body is different, again if I write the bodies in the parent classes, what will happen? Every child will get all the 3 registration fee functions. That is not at all correct. I think the same problem. So simply what to be noted over here, if the body is common, then make it as normal. Directly write that in the parent. But if the body is different for different objects, you have to make it as abstract in the parent and directly write the bodies in the child classes, so that that child class object will get only that required method. Every method will not be loaded. So now I am asking you a question. Tell me yes or no. A class can have both abstract and non-abstract methods. Yes or no?
Yes.
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 Okay. A class can have both abstract and non-abstract methods. Fine. Okay. Now, see, I will tell you what is an abstract class. See, class with at least one abstract method is called as an abstract class. Let us say class is having 99 normal methods, but one abstract method is there. Then please tell me that class will become normal class or abstract class?
Abstract.
Abstract class. Class with at least one abstract method is called as abstract class. Class with at least one abstract method is called as abstract class. Okay, so this is the syntax to create abstract method. This is for abstract class. So we will discuss these points later. But first we will just see an example up to this point. So can anybody answer what is a module basically? What is a module?
It's a collection of equations or something to run. Like it's like a
Collection of
program.
functions or methods.
It's a collection of variables, methods, and classes.
Yes.
Correct? So module is a collection of variables, functions, and classes. So what is the name of the module? Do you remember? What is the name of the module generally? Not generally, for sure.
Name of the file.
Perfect. Name of the file is nothing but the name of the module. We have discussed this earlier. So in the student demo module, I am taking a class student. In the student demo module, I am taking a class student. In the student class, registration fee is common for every student. So I just kept it as a normal method, but fee is different for different students. So I just kept that as abstract method. Okay, this is a normal one and this is an abstract one. Okay. So right click, new Python file. I'm creating a module with the name student demo. Student demo. And here I'm creating a student class with one normal method and one abstract method. Can anybody tell me what is the name of the normal method here?
REGFE.
Yeah,
Registration fee.
What is the name of the abstract method?
Fee.
Fee. Okay. So fine. Now what I'm doing, I'm creating a Python file with the name Python student. So right click, new Python file, Python student. So here, let me put, I will explain. So what is happening here? Python student is becoming the child of the student class. Can anybody tell me into Python student class, what are the methods that will be inherited from the student class?
Registration fee.
Registration fee
and fee.
and fee. So in the student, two methods are there, registration fee and fee. So both the methods will go to the Python student class. See, already registration fee is having the body. Now we are going to write the body for the fee function. Registration fee is already having body and now we are writing the body for the fee function. So core Python this much, advanced Python this much, total Python fee equal to core plus advanced. The fee for complete Python is Python total fee. This variable I am displaying. So if Python student comes, simply what I will do, I will create object for the Python student class. So into this P, as you told me earlier, all the methods will not be loaded, only the Python fee logic. Also the registration fee logic will be looked at. Registration fee logic will be looked at. P dot registration fee, P dot fee. That means from P object you are calling the fee and registration fee. So for Python students, I will run this code. 100 rupees is the registration fee for any course because you have called that registration fee also. And then whenever you are calling fee, it is telling the fee for complete Python is 8,000. So can anybody explain this line to me? What is this one?
From module student demo.
We are inputting the class from module.
Yes, from student demo module, we are importing the student class and we are making student to be the parent of the Python student class. If I want to use a variable or function or class from a module, I must import it. I am bringing the student class from the student demo module into the current .py file. Into Python student.py, I am bringing the student class from student demo module. Okay, you remembered. Okay, so for Java students, what I will do, I will create this Java student.py file. Okay, so I am bringing student class from the Java student module, and I am making Java student to be the child of the student class. From the student class, again, what will happen? Fee and registration fee. Fee and registration fee will be loaded into the Java student. Registration fee is already having body, and now we are writing the code for the fee function. Core Java, Advanced Java frameworks. So total Java fee is 2,000 plus 3,000 plus 2,000, that is 7,000. So the fee for complete Java is 7,000 I'm doing. And if Java student comes, what I will do, I will create an object for the Java student class. So into the J object, what will happen? The Java fee logic will go,
Registration fee.
and also the registration fee will go. So J dot registration fee, J dot fee. J means the J object registration fee and fee will be called. So 100 rupees is the registration fee for any course. The fee for complete Python is 7,000. Sorry, fee for complete Java is 7,000 will be printed. Same thing. So this is definitely a better way of coding. If you feel like the bodies are different, don't write everything in the parent. Directly write the body in the child class. But if the body is common, okay, you put it in the parent directly. So now I am having a question here. See, you people have developed this code, being the developers, and I am a person from maintenance team. So I have seen this method. Means what I will think. You will write the body. Okay, these people will write the body for the fee function later. That's what I will think. But you will write the body here later, or you will never write the body here. Will you write the body?
No.
No,
No, right? But
no.
if you put pass, how I will understand or how Python will understand? It's like we will provide the body in future. That is the meaning of pass given. But
Yes.
here you will never write the body because that's an abstract method. So you have to indicate that to everybody. You should at least indicate, no, this is an abstract method. I will never write the body here. So how can I do that? I have to indicate. So I will explain this one. From ABC module, import. Forget about this line. Okay, I will explain. See, anyhow, I want to indicate that this method should be abstract. So how can I indicate means by, this is called as decorative. See what I will do. See, on top of the method, I will be putting the decorative called as what? Abstract method, @abstract method. So now, even though you put pass, I will easily understand that, okay, they will never write the body for this here. because that's an abstract method. So to indicate a method as abstract, you have to put @abstract method on top of that particular method. Okay, this is the first point. So that's why in the material I have written the syntax to create an abstract method is this one. This is the syntax to create an abstract method. Okay. Now, what is the one more small point I want to tell you. Before that, I will ask you a question. Student is an abstract class or normal class? Student is an abstract class or normal class?
Both.
No.
No, no, abstract.
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 Abstract. Why? Please read the definition. What is an abstract class? If a class is having at least one abstract method, then that class will become abstract. Yeah, the student is having one abstract method, na? So this is an abstract class. Obviously, it's an abstract class. And please to remember a property here. Abstract classes cannot have objects. We cannot create object for the abstract classes. See, I am trying to create object for the abstract class. If I execute student_demo.py, I should get an error, yes or no. As per the principle I told, that abstract classes cannot
Yes,
have
yes.
objects. If I create object for that student, I should get an error. Let us see, I am getting the error, yes or no. I am not getting error. Why I am not getting error? That means the principle I told is wrong. Abstract classes can have objects? No, abstract classes cannot have objects. But still it is not showing error means simply the point here is student is not treated as abstract class. Simply Python is not treating the student class as abstract and it is not applying the properties of abstraction for the student class. See, as per the definition, class with one abstract method is called as abstract class. That is okay. But see, I have to indicate Python being a programmer. I have to indicate Python that this class is an abstract class. See, you know, in Java or in .NET, how we will indicate that a class as abstract, you know, by preceding the class with the abstract keyword. I must indicate the class as abstract in any language, not only in Python. Then only it is properly considered as an abstract class. So in Java or .NET, how I will indicate a class as abstract? By preceding the class with the abstract keyword. But in Python, we don't have abstract keyword. We don't have abstract keyword, then how can I indicate that my class is abstract? How Python? Yeah, what Python people are telling, if you want to indicate a class as abstract, make your class to be the child of the ABC class. ABC means what? Abstract base class. ABC is a predefined class. It's a class from Python people. So what they are telling, if you make your class to be the child of my ABC class, okay, I will understand that this class is abstract and I will apply all the properties of abstraction. In other technologies, in other languages, to indicate a class as abstract, you have to precede the class with the abstract keyword. But in Python, abstract keyword is not there. Then how Python people are asking us to indicate a class as abstract? Simply make your class to be the child of ABC class. Then, okay, I will understand that your class is abstract and I will apply all the properties of abstraction. Now tell me, if I execute this, I will get an error, yes or no? Abstract classes don't have objects, na? I am creating object. No. So I will
Yes,
get
it will show error.
yes, exactly. Can't instantiate abstract class student. Instantiation means what? Creation of object. That means earlier it is not treated as abstract class and abstraction properties are not applied for this class. Whenever you are making that to be the child of ABC, then perfectly it is considered as an abstract class and all such properties are applied. If you create object, then it is simply telling, sorry, you cannot create object for the abstract class. You can't instantiate the abstract class with abstract method fee. Okay, so actually see here I have written in the material how to create an abstract class. Class name, that should be the child of ABC. ABC means what? Abstract base class. Abstract base class. See, this is the syntax to create an abstract method. This is the way to indicate a method as abstract. And this is a way to indicate a class as abstract. So, but what is this line? I will tell you. See, you are creating several modules now. Like that, ABC is a predefined module. That means what? This is a module created by Python people. This is a module created by Python people. In the ABC module, they have created a class called as ABC. Okay, in the ABC module, they have created a class called as ABC. Now, see what I am telling you. I am having a class called as 1.py. See, into this 1.py file, I want to get this ABC. How can I do that? From, please tell me, what is the name of the module?
ABC.
ABC. Which class you want to import?
ABC.
ABC.
Yeah,
ABC.
exactly. That's what we did. Once I import, what I will do, I will make my class to be the child of the ABC class so that I will properly indicate that my class is abstract. The same thing I did here. From ABC module, I am importing ABC class and also the decorative abstract method. I must import, let it be predefined method or let it be user defined class or predefined class or user defined or predefined method, whatever. If you want to use anything from the module, you have to bring that, you have to import that into your current .py file. So from ABC module, you are importing the ABC class and also this decorative, and then you are using. Okay, so this is the concept of abstraction. Okay, so nextly what we are going to do, we are going to discuss the concept called as constructors. See, I will write one program, you tell me whether you understood or not. I will take a class demo and in that I am writing like this: f data self Can anybody answer? If I want to call that data function, what I have to create for the class?
Object.
Okay, I have to create object for the class. Okay, so this is the object. D equal to demo. Can you please tell me how to call a method?
D dot.
D dot data. Okay. Yeah. So whenever I call a method, with what object I am calling, that object will be sent as a default parameter to the definition. We all pretty well know that. And now what will happen? See, this D object will go into self. Self means D. Self means D. In D you are putting A equal to 10, in D you are putting B equal to 20. Already we did this for many number of times. So now what happened? So here D went. In D, we are putting A equal to 10. In D, we are putting B equal to 20. In D object, we are writing A equal to 10. In D object, we are writing B equal to 20. See, in D object, put A equal to 10. In D object, put B equal to 20. So this is fine. If you don't mind, give me just 1 minute. I will close the door. Noise is coming.
पहले आगे बुलाए
I'm unable to hear anything. Static voice వస్తుంది.
Okay. Fine. So that means using what I have initialized the object, using a normal method, I have initialized the object. So see, everybody should mute yourself. Using a normal method, we have initialized the object. Prashant Kumar, please mute yourself. Prashant Kumar is there? So what we are doing, actually here, using a normal method, we have initialized the object. Using a normal method, we have initialized the object. Okay. See, instead of using a normal method to initialize the object, I will use a constructor to do the same. I will use a constructor to do the same. See, what I will do, I will take the class demo, and what is the syntax to create a constructor? You know, def underscore underscore init underscore underscore self. Def init self. Okay. Now here what I will do, I will write self dot a equal to 10 and self dot b equal to 20. Self dot b equal to 20. So what I am doing, see, this is an important point. Actually, can you please tell me what is the object I have created for the demo class?
D.
D is the object. Correct. See, remember the most important point, as soon create an object the constructor of that class will be called with that object. See, as soon as I create object for the class, what will happen? The constructor of the class will be called with that object. That means what? If I write d equal to demo, then the constructor of the demo class will be called with the object d. The constructor of the demo class will be called with the object d, and to store this object, to hold this object, you know, we are having self. Again, in self means what? D. In D, a equal to 10 I am putting. In D, b equal to 20 I am putting. As soon as I create object for the class, the constructor of the class will be called with the object d. So this d will be into self. In D, a equal to 10, and in D we are putting b equal to 20. So what happened? A equal to 10 and b equal to 20. So that means what? We are initializing an object using a parameterless constructor. See, parameterless in the sense we didn't write any parameters like this, na? So we have initialized the object using a parameterless constructor. I will tell the advantage. Please wait for some time. What is the advantage of using constructor to initialize? I will tell soon. But first understand the concept. So initially what I did, I have initialized the object using a method. But now I have initialized the object using a parameterless constructor. Class demo I have taken. In that, this is the syntax to create the constructor. That should be like that only. Syntax means it should be like that only. No? So the point is, as soon as you create object for the class, the constructor of the class will be called, and with that object, so demo class constructor will be called with d. In d a equal to 10, in d b equal to 20, I am putting So again, I have initialized the object using the constructor, like a parameterless constructor. Now what I will do, see, some parameters. Okay, so what I'm doing here, see, you pretty well know that whenever I create object for the class, the constructor of the class will be called with that object. That means what? The constructor of the demo class will be called with the D 10, 20. So now what I will do, so now I will just, like, the Python is putting D object into self, and 10 into this X and 20 into this Y. So X is what 10 and Y is what 20. So self means what D. In D object, again you are creating a variable A and you are assigning this 10. And in D object, you are creating a variable B, you are assigning this 20. Understood? So whenever you create object, the constructor of the class will be called with that object. So what will happen here? The constructor of the demo class will be called with D 10, 20. Here D, here 10, here 20. In D, A equal to 10 will be kept, and in D, B equal to 20 will be taken. So what happened here? In D object, A equal to 10 is there, and B equal to 20 is there. Okay, that means what you did, using a parameterized constructor, you have initialized the object. Using a parameterized constructor, you have initialized the object. So just have a look for one more time. Just take a minute, just have a look, then I will tell you exactly what is the real-time purpose of constructor. Just have a look from the beginning. Okay, I'm scrolling down, you see. Okay, fine. So let us see. Actually, the point here is, anyhow, method is there to initialize the object. Method is there to initialize the object. Now, why we have to use a constructor? Can you give your guess why constructor is better to initialize the object? One more small point here. You can put any instruction in the constructor. Not only initialization, I can just put print and statements, whatever. But the constructor is generally used for initializing the object. But why method is there now? If you can give your guess, yes, definitely you can.
If you want to store some default values, madam,
What?
some default values for checking version type of thing.
Okay, Any other answers?
Constructor is called automatically.
That is
Sometimes
an
we don't know variable, what is the variable value. That time it will be used.
For automatic initialization.
automatic initialization. That is the exact point. Yes. So I will tell you here. See.
Hello.
Yes. So purpose. Okay. So see the requirement here. I just want to initialize the data of some 50 students. So for initializing the data, I have taken a normal method. This is not a constructor. So for maintaining one employee record, I am taking one object. So I have taken several objects like this. To be frank, 4 lines are not required. You can create the objects like this: E1, comma, E2, comma, E3, comma, E4 equal to employee. Yeah, this is also okay. Okay. Somehow I have created objects for each, and I have created several objects to store several employees records. So what I'm doing, a dot insert, I'm calling the insert function with a101 Satya. So here a101 Satya will go, in a object ID will become 101, in a object name will become Satya. That means a object got initialized. Next, if I want to initialize the data of the second employee, one more time I have to call the insert function. B dot insert, B102 Harika. So here B, here 102, here Harika will be taken. In B ID will become 102, in B name will become Harika. So the second employee object got initialized. So like that, C in C dot insert. So C103 Valli. In C ID will become 103, in C name will become Valli. So like that, what I am telling, if I want to initialize the data of 50 employees, can anybody tell me how many times this method has to be called?
50 times.
50 times.
50 times.
Times.
Yeah, if I have to initialize the data of some 50 students or 50 employees, 50 times I have to call this method. With each and every object I have to call. If I define the method, that is not sufficient. If we call, then only it will be executed. Now tell me, I forgot to call the insert function with the C object. I forgot to call the insert function with C object. Then the the third employee record will be inserted or will not be inserted. I forgot
Not
to
insert. Not
call.
insert.
So this is the problem. If you use a method to initialize, the object, number of times with each and every object you have to call. 50 employees means 50 times you have to call the method. That's why what I am doing, instead of using a method, I will use a constructor to initialize the object. See, this is a constructor, not the method. As soon as I create object for the class, the constructor of the class will be called automatically. See, the employee class constructor will be called with A101 Satya. So A101 Satya, in A ID will become 101, in A name will become Satya. First object got initialized like this. Again, one more object if I create, one more time the constructor is called automatically. Nobody have requirement to call a constructor. So B102 Raghu. So B ID is equal to 102, B name equal to Raghu. So again, C 103 Rashmi. In C ID will become 103, in C name will become Rashmi. So do you observe any benefit here? So constructor means you create object, that's it. It will be called automatically. See, in the earlier case, you have created objects and with every object you have called the method. But here you just have created objects, that's it. You didn't make any separate calls to anything. So you create object, automatically the constructor will be called. So for me, 50 calling instructions got reduced. Simple difference between a method and constructor is, method means you have to call, constructor means it will be called automatically. Method should be called by you, constructor means it will be called automatically. That is the advantage. Okay, so that's why it is always better to use the constructors. rather than using the methods to initialize the objects. As soon as you create object for the class, the constructor of the class will be called automatically. Okay, fine then. So the next thing what we are going to see is multi-threading. Multi-threading. See, this is our program. See, if you execute your program, what will happen? One thread will be created. One thread will be created. You know what is the name of the thread? The name of the thread is called as main. Okay. If you execute your program, if you hit run button, as soon as you hit run button, one thread will be created, and that thread is responsible for execution of your program. Thread will execute this line, then this line, then this line, then this line, like that. Who is executing your program? Thread. Thread is the one which will execute your program. Okay. See, here what is the point? Actually, this is a large code. This is a large code. See, up to you see, if these 4 instructions are executed, then let us say one task will be performed. If these 4, let us say, up to here, if the code is executed, let us say the second task will be performed. The second task will be performed. If this code is executed, let us say third task is performed. Okay, so this is one program only, but if this program is completely executed, 3 tasks are going to be finished. Okay, see, let us say actually you have executed the program and thread got created. Thread is executing the first line, thread is executing the second line. You know, from second line to third line, if the thread has to go, how much time it is taking, you know, it requires 4 hours of time. Why 4 hours of time? If the thread want to go from the second line to third line, 4 hours of time is required. Why? Why means, see, let us say, here you have given a command to get a file downloaded. That file is very large. It is going to take 4 hours of time to download that file. Okay, actually this thread has taken the CPU and it has started the execution of this piece of code. It has started the execution of this piece of code. See, here to go from the second line to third line, 4 hours of time is required. Why 4 hours means? Some file has to be downloaded. Basing on the information in that file, then the next piece of code can be executed. Okay, so CPU is sitting idle for 4 hours. Thread is also in wait state for 4 hours. After 4 hours, the file got downloaded and the remaining code is executed. The first task is completed. Okay, now the thread is executing this line, this line. Similarly, the thread requires 2 hours of time to go from this line to the next line. Why like that? Why means, here you have given some print command and the printer is very busy. Printer is very busy in printing some data. Up to 2 hours, printer will not be free. So here again the CPU should sit idle for 2 hours, and after 2 hours printer became free. The thread is then executing the remaining code and then the task 2 is completed. Okay, then the thread is executing the third piece of code. Then the thread is executing the third piece of code. See, this is not at all good. The 2 problems what you have to understand here is you are not at all utilizing the CPU well. 6 hours, for 6 hours the CPU will sit idle. Because of that, what will happen? The performance of the program will be degraded. The performance will be degraded. See, the time complexity will be increased. If you make CPU idle to sit idle, the time complexity will be increased. What is time complexity? Time taken to produce the result. Time taken to produce the result will be increased if you put CPU idle to sit idle for 6 hours. That's the first problem. Second problem is what? no parallel processing. No parallel processing. See, after completely performing the first task, then only the second task is started. After completely performing the second task, then only the third task is started. Yes. So if you run the code, what will happen? If you run the code, one thread will be created and that thread will be executing your program. So here from second line to third line, it is taking 4 hours. CPU sitting idle for 4 hours. After 4 hours, the thread went to the next line and executing that. Again, what happened? So from this line to this line, 2 hours time is required. So till 2 hours, there is nothing to be done. CPU sitting idle. And then after 2 hours, the CPU, the CPU will become active and it will proceed with the execution of remaining piece of code. And then the second task is done later on the third task. So definitely I'm just making the CPU to sit idle here for 6 hours. Because of that, the performance will be degraded. More time is required to complete the execution of the entire code. And that too, parallel processing is not there. So after completely performing one task, then only the second task is done. Like second task is started. So how many threads will be there? By default, only one, right? Instead of having one thread, see, let us do like this. Create multiple threads. I am telling that to execute this piece of code, to perform the first task, I am taking one thread. To execute this piece of code, to perform the second task, I will be creating one more thread. To execute this piece of code, to perform the third task, I am creating one more thread called as T3. Okay, so if one thread is there, that's a problem. Now that's why to execute 3 pieces of code of same program, I'm creating 3 threads. Okay, now what will happen? So let us say T1 thread has taken the CPU. Let us say T1 thread has taken the CPU. Okay, and it is executing the first piece of code. This line is executed, this line is executed, but from this line to this line, how much time is required? 4 hours. Instead of making CPU to sit idle for 4 hours, T2 is also inactive, right? What will happen here? T2 will grab the CPU. It is also having its own piece of code for execution, right? T2 will grab the CPU and it will start the execution of its own piece of code. Here again, there is 2 hours wait time. So whenever there is delay here, instead of making CPU to sit idle, T3 is also active now. So T3 will grab the CPU and it will start execution of this piece of code. Meanwhile, if the required resource is there, like let us say 4 hours is there, then CPU will be taken back by T1, thread 1, and it will execute this code. Here any delay, it will be switched to CPU will be grabbed by T2 and it will execute its code. If there is any delay here, CPU will be immediately grabbed by T3 and then it will execute its own piece of code. Like that, see the CPU will be switched, will be shared among multiple threads. If there is any delay, CPU will not sit idle. Immediately the next thread will grab the CPU and it will start execution of its own piece of code. Any delay here, next thread. Any delay here, again the previous thread. Like that, what is the advantage of implementing multiple threads in your program? Multi-threading. If you implement multiple threads, performance will be greatly improved. Performance will be greatly improved and parallel processing can be achieved. After completely performing the first task, then only second task. After completely performing second task, then only third task. It's not like that. Okay. So all the threads are in active state. So several pieces of same program are getting executed simultaneously. So several tasks can be performed simultaneously. Okay. So if multi-threading is used to achieve multitasking, you can achieve multitasking using this multi-threading. So I am going to prove these 2 things with an example in the next class. I will show without threads, I will write one program. I will show the time complexity and I will show parallel processing is not there. If I implement threads in that program, I will show you how time complexity got reduced and how parallel processing is achieved. I will be showing with a practical example. And even we can talk more on this, the limitations and all also we will be discussing in the next class. Okay.
Ma'am, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Tell me.
I actually missed some points because I caught a call in the middle while you were telling. Uh, I missed the introduction of constructor. So
You have the video, na? You can just go through the video. Still, if you have doubt, please get back.
no, video is not being shared. No.
A video have to be shared. I told already. It's okay. I will talk again. Okay.
Okay, okay, ma'am.
Okay then. Yeah. That's it, na? Okay then. Let's connect tomorrow and finish off this threads topic. Okay. Bye.
Okay.
Okay. Bye.
Thank you, ma'am.